Well, thank you, Carl, and thank you, Rose Hill. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. You said a lot of good things, and I'm going to try to give you a little bit of a sense of where we're going tonight and where we're maybe going to go bigger picture. And I'll pick up again on a couple of Carl's themes. Just by way of introduction, I am Greg Regal. I'm a land use and zoning lawyer with a firm called McGuire Woods that's got about a 40-year history in the county. I work out of Tyson's, but work all over the county. And you're right, Carl, I think we've known each other 30 years, back to Joe Alexander days. And, you know, to give you a little sense of sort of my history, I actually started my career in the Department of Planning and Zoning in the late 80s, and I've been around Fairfax County land use processes ever since. And it's always a pleasure to get to know communities like this. And this is, you know, pick your analogy, but day one of a journey or a first inning of a 9-inning game, and we got a lot of innings to go and a lot of road to cover. But we really are pleased to be here, and I'm joined by a lot of folks that frankly matter in this exercise more than me. And I'll start with Andrew McIntyre from Combined Properties. He is Senior Executive Vice President, responsible for most of their development on the East Coast, and is a great resource on all these sorts of issues. You're going to hear from Aisha Hill as well. She's a vice president of the organization, has done a lot of direct work with other properties that they own and manage in this part of Fairfax County and the region. We've got Alan Henderson manning the camera, multi-talented guy. Alan wears a lot of hats in the company. I think you're technically an analyst, but you're a photographer and you're a construction guy, and you'll see more of Alan as we go forward. And then we've got Matt Fitzsimmons to my left. Matt is the project architect. He's going to walk you through some of the details of what we're trying to do or potentially do. And I start a lot of conversations in rooms like this talking about, boy, a lot of things have changed as we've been through, you know, 2.5 years of pandemic and masks and all that. And I think you don't have to look far to see that some of that most pronounced change is in the retail industries. And we've all found that we shop differently and we engage differently in products. And that's a lot of what's brought us here tonight, is in terms of just how do we reposition Rose Hill to respond to those realities and respond to maybe further change that's coming. And I think one of the first things that we had a fairly obvious point of alignment when Carl and I started talking about this is the notion that it's in everybody's interest not to have the center decline. And that's really what we want as well, in terms of keeping a viable asset in the community. And frankly, some of what we'd like to share with you tonight are maybe some opportunities to not just have it be successful as a place you can shop and do retail activities, but really have it be an asset to the community in terms of something that can be a gathering place. We're going to talk about some ways to add some amenities to the center, so you're doing something other than just parking and shopping and leaving. And we've had some good success in other places with that kind of story. And I'll tell you straight up that some of what we're going to show you is different than what's there now. In many cases, it's positioning the retail differently in terms of size and scale. It's maybe adding some other uses that can make it vital and vibrant. So it's more than just a fresh coat of paint or reworking the signs and things like that. But we think it's worth doing, and it's an investment that Combined is prepared to make in the community. And we'll show you some examples of some things that have worked in other places and get your reactions to it. I did want to talk about process a little bit. Carl summarized it right, as he always does. We've got the entire land use process in front of us. And if we're going to make this go, we're going to be talking to Supervisor Lusk about just reworking the vision for this part of Rose Hill, and then going through a very detailed land use process that will span at least a year. And sure as anything, we will be here multiple times talking, and certainly coming out at night, you'll have ways to get a hold of us as well. If you've got an idea, want to talk about something, we're very transparent and delighted to engage in those discussions. So a long way to go, hopefully an interesting evening. And to finish where I started, you know, we're thrilled to be here and really appreciate your time and your engagement, and we're very excited to talk to you some more. So with that, I think, Aisha, you're up next, or Andrew, you want to take it? Excuse me.
Thank you, Gary. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Carl, for setting this up and giving us the opportunity to come and speak. Again, my name is Andrew McIntyre. I run the development for our firm. A couple of other hats I wear, but really not important. I think a lot of what you've heard already is absolutely true. The nature of retail is changing, but it didn't start with the pandemic. Combined Properties, a little bit of information about our company is up here, but really what I want to talk about is really the journey we started probably a decade ago when we realized that we had shopping centers that will be in the pathway of development opportunities, but we will see a decline in the actual demand from our retail users. And that started, and there's a term called big box. Big box folks are the Rosses, the Targets of the world, that aren't necessarily grocers as much as they provide a lot of other ancillary goods. And really what happened during the pandemic is a trend that was already underway was accelerated, which in basically technology, logistics, we all probably experienced it where we ordered essentials online, but then it was food and it was a number of other things. So we have properties on the East Coast in the Mid-Atlantic, which includes Maryland and Virginia, and 2/3 of our retail portfolios are similar to Rose Hill. And we have 1/3 of them in California. And altogether, I think we have about 580 tenants. As a retail owner that has mortgages to pay to our lenders, in the height of the pandemic in April of 2020, out of those, we had 85% come to us looking for rent relief. These were mom and pop businesses that weren't able to make it. It was the big box folks that were like, we aren't allowed to open. They were gyms. Every retail company out there went through this, and we did everything we could to sit down and work through, and we saved a lot of our tenants. We couldn't save everybody. We worked with folks, figured out how to defer rent, to just absorb it, but it accelerated this trend that we already saw. So what were we doing about that previously? We have 2 other projects, and I'm not going to assume anybody knows anything about Combined, but what I'll tell you is we are a long-term holder. There are a lot of different types of commercial real estate developers, and there's no one size fits all. There are some folks that are mercantile that go in, buy property, entitle it, build it, sell it, take their profit, and go. We exist in these communities for generations. One of the projects that we redeveloped in the city of Fairfax is called Scout on the Circle. Aisha will talk about that a little bit. When we broke ground on that back in 2018, the mayor of the city of Fairfax, David Meyer, was there. He's a very good friend, as are the folks in the city. And Ron Haft, our founder, he spoke about how he as a kid was there with his dad, cut the ribbon with his mom after they built that center. That's how long we hold our properties. Ron is probably my age and probably outlived me by a couple of decades, only because he's got a lot of money, so people take care of him better than I take care of myself. But the reality is we're the exact same with our properties across the board where we redevelop. One you might be a little bit more familiar with, that Carl was a part of when we took it through entitlement, is our South Alex project over on US 1 and North Kings Highway. And we'll talk about that one in a few minutes. But the goal here is, the reason I bring that up is we thought about the changing nature of retail, the way it's difficult to get retailers to pay the premiums that we need to reinvest money into the centers for things like asphalt and for facade upgrades, or to bring better retail in. And we realized that it was going to be a challenge, but this is great real estate in communities that we enjoy being in. So we put our properties into this matrix, and we said, okay, the way we get to the dirt, and that's our slang, so that we can redevelop, is we have major tenants with leases, and we put things into place to allow us to have the redevelopment rights after a certain period. For us at Rose Hill, we will not be able to put a shovel in the ground and get to the dirt based on our current leasing until 2027. It's 2022, so why are we here talking? As Carl pointed out and Greg reiterated, this is a long process. In fact, we're a little bit further behind than maybe what Carl alluded to. We have spent the last couple months, after talking with Carl and Supervisor Lust, looking at different planning options for this site based on the constraints that we understand with access and with massing, height, what we think the uses are, understanding public space. And I think we got to concept G, and we finally got to something that we said, look, this feels like it works for us, that this is something that we would feel good about bringing to the community, but we don't even have a schedule yet for when we would move this forward, because we want to come to you and see what your feedback is and understand your level of support. We are long-term members in these communities. The binary part of this, we still have to go through if we believe that we have this close to right and we get the feedback and we understand what people are willing to support, what we think we can make happen from a zoning perspective. That's really important when it comes to our assumptions on what we can model for square footage of things that we can build, the use types, what rents we could get to offset the costs that have to go into a 10-acre redevelopment. The McDonald's is not part of this. They're gonna be there until 2055, and we can work around them, as you'll see. But the reality is, once we understand that, we will go run our numbers and find out if it's even economically feasible based on what we believe the community would support. If it's feasible and the community supports it, we'll work to move forward. If not, there's probably a 15-year window before we come back and revisit it. And it's not that it's no knock on anybody, it's just, it's gotta be economically viable, and it has to be something the community wants. So, like Carla mentioned, we're here to answer questions. This is a process, this is the beginning of it. I am very impressed at what a civic-minded community you have. See a lot of people out here on this rainy, chilly night, so we greatly appreciate it. Look forward to your feedback and your thoughts and your questions. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Aisha to talk about some of the things that we've done recently at some of our other centers.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you again for having us. As Andrew mentioned, before we go into the specifics about what we could potentially do at Rose Hill, we did want to just share two projects that we've successfully executed something similar. And they're both also are started in a similar place, strip center, 100,000 square feet of retail, approximately 9-10 acre sites, where we're going from, you know, a strip center and a parking field and bringing back a mix of uses that will, you know, re-energize the community, re-energize the retail, allow us to keep and attract, you know, the retail that is the best for the community, and create new places to do gatherings and have open spaces. So the first project is Scout on the Circle. As Andrew mentioned, it's in the city of Fairfax. It is 400 apartments and 88,000 square feet of retail between 3 buildings. The first building is a giant, which I don't know if we can see in this picture, but we may see later. And then the 2 other buildings are retail at the base with residential units above, a mix of studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, and some dens, so that there's the appropriate amount to fit the community. And before we dive into like what these are actually going to be, we do spend a lot of time figuring out what the community wants. So in this building in particular, we didn't formulaically put in the units like you would normally do if it was like downtown Washington, D.C. We added some larger units here so that, because we knew that there was more family oriented and a need for some bigger units more than we would typically do. And then the second project is South Alex, which again, you know, not far right up the street. South Alex, we also started in late 2018. Many of you may know that there was a casualty in early 2020. We have rebuilt that project and it's slated to open this summer. Fingers crossed. We are in the mix of getting all that underway right now. This site actually has 41 townhomes, which were built by Craftmark. Those are all sold and occupied. It also has 400 apartments, again, with a mix of unit types from junior 1 bedrooms all the way up to 2 dens. And it has about 44,000 square foot of retail, 19,000 square foot Aldi, and the other retail is currently being leased at this time. So one other thing that I would like to reiterate, with us being a long-term holder, we do take a lot of time to think through all the decisions that we make for all of these assets, because we plan to hold them, you know, for as long as Ron is alive, as Andrew said, which is going to be a very long time. So every decision that we make, it's not like a flipper. You know, we're not using the cheapest materials. We are we are planning to manage these and own them and run them and be a part of the community into the future. And so every decision that we make comes with that in mind. We like to do unique things that you can see a little bit here with the front of South Alex. We like to use art and sculptures, murals, both interior and exterior to our buildings to just bring another piece of life into the community, and also have it be a focal point, like something somebody wants to go see and go be a part of and go experience. At all of our communities, we also like to have open spaces, and at South Alex in particular, we have a public plaza, and we also have both areas where we can shut down the street, open it up, where we can do markets and street fairs and different activities for the community to come in. So it's not just about the people that might live in the apartments or the townhomes, but it's about the community at large and kind of bringing everybody in and giving them a place to be, you know, outside of just going to the grocery store, going to get a cup of coffee. And South Alex, I should also mention, has also a dog park and a tot lot that's also shared at the site.
Yeah, the only other thing is, if you don't recognize the name South Alex, this used to be the Pendal Shopping Center.
Yes, Pendal Plaza.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Nice fire though.
So, you know, they picked that up on the weather satellites as a
I
forest
went to the
fire.
fire department.
Oh, God.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And we appreciate all the support from
Yeah,
the,
4
by the way,
days of work.
if anybody's here from the county
What happened to
did
the
a great
person who
job.
started that fire?
Even if they ever were able to identify the person who dropped the cigarette down because it was not intentional, nothing would have happened to them.
So your projects don't have a no smoking?
No, they do.
They do.
And we, before that fire, walked with our superintendent, who we watched him enforce it and kick people off the site. But you have approximately 5 to 8 general contractors, CBG, who we think is a great partner, trying to manage. Sometimes we have 150, 200 subs. And then you have delivery personnel, you have people that are inspectors, you have third parties that are on there, lenders doing walks. So it's impossible, even though it's signed, to avoid it. It was one of those perfect storm things, and as much as it was devastating for those of us that lived through it, we committed to going back and building it and getting us back to where we need to be. So, and we're close to being there.
Yes.
Great, so I will take off from that. I'm Matthew Fitzsimmons, I'm with Portico Blue Mock. I'm an architect and urban planner. I'm very happy to be here. We've worked with Combined on numerous projects, 2 projects we just discussed. And hopefully we can make a great opportunity here at Rose Hill Shopping Center. For those who are in the room, just want to start off with just setting the context. So if you're here for another meeting, you could probably leave at this point. I'll just go through context a little bit, then we'll jump right into kind of what the vision plan wants to be at this point in time. Again, we've been throwing around a lot of ideas. We hope to hear some more ideas generated tonight so we can, really make this a great experience for the overall community. We did provide some basic massing. We don't have a lot of details. I know there was a lot of details talked early on, but we don't have a lot of details in terms of materials and things of that nature. I think that will come, but we did want to provide you with a sense of like scale, where the building blocks would get placed on the site, so you can start to envision that 3-dimensionally, not just see it on the plan view. To help with the character, we want to provide some precedent images at the end, so you can get a sense of like how the experiences could be in real time through some pictures and things of that nature. So again, Rose Hill Shopping Center, we are right here tonight. It's a lovely, I would imagine, a wonderful spring day when it's not raining. It's only a 5-minute walk up to the shopping center, so we're really close to that. We are going to be talking about the area bounded in yellow. It's located at a very prominent intersection, Franconia and Rose Hill Drives. Within that 5-minute walk, on our side of those roads, we're adjacent to the post office, the bank building, and the Rose Hill apartments. These are all great land use categories that I think can help support the future of the shopping center to build that kind of experience that we're looking for, that public space, that piazza, that can really make this vibrant throughout the year, throughout the seasons, and not just for the event days, but for the everyday. And we can make this, and it's not a great opportunity within this 5-minute walk to make it a pedestrian-oriented experience, so people can leave the car in the garage or wherever and just walk and experience this great opportunity that we have in front of us. So I'm gonna throw a curveball and rotate the plan about 45 degrees that way. So North is the top left of the screen. We're gonna zoom in. Just again, calling attention, we're not gonna talk about McDonald's. We are working around the McDonald's, so when we start looking at plan views, we're just gonna tweak, the curb cuts and things and make them happy and fit them into the scheme. You do have a lot of great access points, as indicated by the white arrows. Hopefully you can see that. I know with the lights on it might be a little hard. You have 2 full access points off of Rose Hill Drive. Rose Hill Drive in character is a really wonderful, spacious, kind of median boulevard experience, and we think that's a great attribute to what we want to plan for in this community. Franconia is on page left. Currently, we only have 1 access point off of that road, and it's a right in, right out, and that's pretty much based on some of the geometries. If the civil engineer was here tonight, he could explain that much better, but based on some of the geometries to those intersections. But we see some opportunities that we can work with in opening up that side of our development to Franconia. We do have some interparcel connections that we would like to honor and work with if we can to just, I think in great pedestrian communities, the more porous the community is, the easier people can get around and really make these great pedestrian streetscapes. Again, it's about 10 acres. And really the most dominant feature today is the large surface parking lot. You don't see a lot of green. Where we have the green is at the perimeter of the site. It's not necessarily a usable green experience. It's wonderful, it's well maintained, it's beautiful, but it's not a green space that can be enjoyed for events, for people to come and gather in community. So I think we heard a lot of this already. I'll try to keep this high level, but again, we're here to make a place out of this, an opportunity to allow communities of small sizes and small sizes to large sizes to be able to congregate here, and then have the experience of the retail help support that. So when we're not having an event, the retail can help supplement those experiences and make it feel active, engaging. The experience that we want to have that gives a sense of safety and security, eyes on the street kind of experience. We're also going to bring to the table housing, a different housing type that we see at the crossroads of these two streets we talked about. This is a multifamily building. It'll have elevators. It'll have ground floor uses that we'll talk about in this presentation. So this housing type, unlike the single family and the garden apartments around it, really is accepting of all types of people. The elevator really makes this an accessible experience, multi-generational, and very walkable to support, to have retail at the ground floor to support the lifestyle of just kind of, either for the empty nester or the young professional or anywhere in between that spectrum. So having said that, this is our working illustrative site plan, concept site plan. And I think, again, north is to the left, Rose Hill Drive is to the top, Franconia Road is to the left. The focus of this plan, which is driving a lot of it, is really trying to bring out a large open space to become the front door to this community. We want to activate that, and so we've ringed it on 3 sides with ground floor retail that's indicated in this plan view in red. So trying to capture that experience, have the retail create that synergy around it. We've allowed the grid of the streets to come through. So this is, you're not pulling into a surface parking lot, you're pulling in, we're using streets to provide access to 2 multifamily buildings, the grocery store to the north end of the site. But it's also gridded. We're providing a service street to the back, but also a Plaza Lufner kind of hardscape roadway in the front, which is going to have multi-purposes to supply convenient on-street parking during non-event days. But because of this network of the street grid, we can close down that section, and it can be this spillover event space that plays double with the greener open space that we're proposing at the center of the site, and still allow circulation through to get to the front door of the grocery store, the front door of the residential buildings, to get to the parking areas on the site. I'm going to zoom down. This is kind of looking at a concept level of the ground floor plan. So again, here's the open space, and then we're positioning that retail to really engage it on all 3 sides, but open it up to Rosedale to be that front door to the neighborhood. We're locating the grocery store site to the left along Franconia. adjacent to the McDonald's. This gives the grocery store kind of a peek to the open space, but also totally engaged to the parking field that's gonna support it across the Greenhaven Place street coming through. Again, we can close down this experience and still have access all the way around the site. The one thing that we see as an opportunity as creating a street experience coming out, we can potentially connect into Westchester Street. Currently there's not an access point to the site there, but there is a crosswalk. We feel that with kind of creating a formalized intersection there, it has the opportunity to help traffic calming and really heighten the awareness of that crosswalk into the site. And we would like to explore that. The street coming in from East Chester Circle will pass through the public space and the retail and really create that kind of forecourt experience to the residential lobbies, which have direct access to amenity space and courtyards off of those lobby spaces.
Matthew, before you leave that slide, would you just go through the retail parking for each of those buildings?
Absolutely.
You mentioned the grocery, and then also the residential and loading for those buildings.
Absolutely. So again, we're in the process of trying to capture the retail on the open space. We're tucking the parking into the parking structures of these mixed-use buildings 2 and 1, the parking zone here and the parking zone there. To make it as convenient as possible, we're creating a passage through the building so you can kind of walk through that retail bar and get directly out to the open space, making it as convenient as possible to go from parked car to the open space. There's still opportunities to walk out to the street from the garage, but trying to create as many opportunities to make it as convenient as possible in the structured parking facility. We're tucking all of the services, residential services off to the back, trying to pull those services away from the public realm, and providing services tucked away on the back side of the retail. I'm sorry, Alicia.
I didn't want to interrupt. Your grocery store is across the street from the parking. Is there going to be like underground entrances to the grocery store?
No, so the grocery store will sit at street level. It'll be at street level.
So you have to cross the street with your groceries to get to the garage.
Right, and this will be designed in a more pedestrian way. It's not, dimensionally, it's no different than the fire lane that you typically would have in front of a grocery store today. It's just because of the structure coming down, it will have more of an urban enclosure to that outdoor experience that you wouldn't necessarily have in a open
Guys,
parking field.
let's let him finish, and then we'll go back and do specific points. We're not gonna get run out of here, so you get to ask your question.
But
But
before
you
you
have
go
to
on,
put it in context. I'm not there yet.
none of us in the back can read any of that. Could you just point out, this is a store, this is an apartment, this is a.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Parking is here.
this is north, this is Franconia Road, grocery store, existing McDonald's at the corner. We're gonna have a mixed-use building with retail facing out to Rose Hill. And then we have we're calling building 2, another mixed-use building with retail at the eastern edge of the building, again, facing out to the open space. And this is the open space there.
And the parking, can you point to
Yep.
that too?
So we have parking inline here and parking in here.
Ground?
It's structured parking, so we'll have parking on the ground level as well as stacked above to support, because we do have to support the residential parking as well as the commercial parking.
You might want to tell them what color the things are too, because some
Yep.
people, unless they're
Can't see it,
colorblind,
sorry.
it'd be better that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a ground floor plan. And we'll see in massing how this will differentiate. But the red is retail, and then coming back in the yellow is the residential footprint. And this represents where the residential would be at the street level. So if you're walking down the street, this is retail, and this would transition to
And the green is?
open space.
Okay, you just kinda gotta go through everything, cause there's nothing clear about
And
it.
the gray is
Absolutely.
parking.
Correct.
Correct.
What is structured parking?
Like a parking garage.
Above grade.
Multi-floor.
Above grade.
Multi-floor, correct.
Structured parking.
Okay. So at this point, I'm gonna jump into the massing views, and I can,
Yeah, you mentioned something about connecting potentially with Westchester. I know I live off of Westchester, and that, comes out of Westchester into Franconia, it's a nightmare. I wonder how is that gonna I'm not sure.
We'll have to study that, of course, through the whole process, and, you know, we'll have to do the traffic analysis, things of that nature, but we think it's an opportunity to help release and improve the pedestrian access there, potentially creating some traffic calming. But that'll be studied in the process.
So one of the obligations we have when we go through and present something like this is to do a traffic study with traffic engineers. And those traffic engineers will understand not just what exists today, but what impact our development from retail, mixed-use residential will have. And based on those flows, they'll work with the Fairfax Department of Transportation. And most likely, I'm guessing, they will require that we put a signal at that location. I don't know that that's the answer or not, but it's a possible solution. But that's a process we have to go through, and there are engineers that dictate based on their requirements, not what we would like or not.
Again, guys, I'd like for you to write these down so we can share them with everybody as we go along. We're just starting today, and I don't want to forget anything. And I've already forgotten what the first one was, okay?
I'll try to be
somebody
very brief.
email them to me, and we'll post them and get people's input and answers, but it gets confusing if you start trying to answer everything the first crack out of the box. Let him finish the presentation, then we'll start our process.
I only have a few more slides too, so I'll try to move quickly. So this is the plan view. Again, the north is to the lower page. We're looking bird's eye over Rose Hill Drive in the foreground. That's building 2, building 1, both mixed-use buildings, and then the grocery store and the McDonald's in the corner here. Again, in the foreground, again, we're trying to use that open space to be the front door along Rose Hill Drive. Create that pedestrian opportunities in here. Again, lined with retail. In this diagram, all the red is the ground floor retail at the base of these buildings. So you can see the extent of that along the frontage of Rose Hill Drive. We have using the access points that are there today to bring those streets into the neighborhood. And then along the front of residential building 1, we really see this as more of a plaza type experience where on a normal day, the car would be invited to that space. But for events, we can shut that down using bollards, using landscape, and create more of a people experience in the front zone of this building, and still allow circulation to move around these building blocks. And then we're setting these buildings back to reflect some of the setbacks that are happening at the Rose Hill apartments. So trying to maintain that green space along the edge of Rose Hill as it comes into the site. And then you can see the parking garage for building 1 and the parking garage to the far side of building 2 in the back. So try to push that to the side and away from the view of the public space there. This is another view positioned over Rose Hill Drive looking back to the site. Again, multi-story building, mixed-use building 2, building 1, the grocery store and the McDonald's. You know, we're placing a retail kiosk in the space, something to help anchor visually that space and really frame that public space in this zone here. Again, we talked about the setback along building 2. We have some really good precedent images of what that could be. We feel this is an extension of the public space as a promenade that can come along the edge of that building and engage the retail and use the retail to help activate that promenade experience. This is Eastchester Circle, so that street entrance coming in. And in this street, we want to create kind of the synergy of the 2 residential lobbies facing each other and create that kind of residential zone just behind there with great access to the front doors and to their amenity spaces in those courtyards. Again, this is last view, just looking over the retail kiosk back to the lawn. Very expansive space, about 120 some feet, plus or minus across the front, and over 200 feet from the front of the kiosk down to the road. And again, the position of the grocery store and its view back to the ground level parking just across that access road there. So now I've got some basic, again, we're not into details of design fully, but we wanted to use some architectural images here, some precedent images to help give you a sense of what we would think would be fitting into the character of this place. Again, looking at the scale opportunity, you know, having the expressive corners of the grocery store kind of pop out, receive you in this neighborhood. Again, also looking at how we treat corners of the mixed-use buildings to really create a sense of placemaking, recesses in the buildings to kind of break down the form, but also to give us opportunities for street experiences, the plaza in front of the Safeway at the Galvin in Rockville. Again, opportunities to create and call attention to the residential lobbies in an expressive way, but also using public art, vibrant colors, and those elements to help really add a layer of attractiveness to things that would typically be more infrastructure oriented, like parking garages and loading zones in the back of retail buildings.
Matthew, before you go on, just because it was brought up about the distance, the street that has to be crossed for the grocery store to the parking, this particular image is from our Scout on the Circle project. They have a number of grocery stores and large businesses in the city. We weren't privy to the numbers, but it is now the busiest grocery store in the city. People were quite happy with it. It's it's not like a road if you were to go out and you have fast moving vehicles. We create a slower slower road through here, and you have several crosswalks as well. And the idea is to make it easy and convenient for people to be able to pull into a surface protected spot at the ground floor of that parking garage and walk over through a crosswalk. And he makes a valid point. You go to shopping centers, including the one across the street, you have to cross a two-way traffic to actually get into the retail. But it provides that convenience to the grocery store and the protected garage, but we've seen it very successfully executed over that property. And would love for people to go experience that themselves and let us know what they thought of it.
I have, and I have thoughts when we're done.
Oh, so you recognize it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Last two slides, again, I think the public space is the most important part of this project. I think we're offering up a lot of great opportunity to create that public experience. I guess this is a little less public, but really creating courtyards for residents that are highly amenitized with lots of activation. But then looking at a lot of flexible lawn plaza spaces that can bring together the retail, the retailer and the public, and having that space big enough for all sorts of scales of events, from just casual dining to a larger film at night kind of experience. Again, with the promenade kind of in front of building 2, we see this as an opportunity to have the storefront really be expressive with public art that can tie that space over to the main civic green space across the street. And again, where we have moments in the buildings, kind of recessing that and giving us the opportunity to create these outdoor dining spaces that are enclosed to themselves, but visually connected to its environment around it. And then finally, again, that discussion about the hardscape, streetscape in front of building 1, using elements of the pavers, the benches, the bollards, the lighting in a way that allows a lot of porousness for the pedestrians from the storefront to the open space, but still, protects them from the automobile that could enter in on a casual day. But again, all of that could get closed off, and then it becomes this plaza experience for the resident. We have a little bit of slope, not a whole lot of slope, but we think there's still an opportunity to break that lawn so we can create that outdoor event space where people can come, sit up high and still see the movie projected at night or the concert, and maybe introduce just some tiered seating on the edge that could double up as landscaped edges to that experience. And with that, I appreciate your patience in letting me